In this part, we will talk about the Ostrogothic kingdom in Italy. Today, we're embarking on a deep dive into, well, one of the most fascinating and complex periods of post-Roman European history. We're looking at the reign of Theodoric the Great.
That's right, and the really unique Gotho-Roman state he managed to forge in Italy. It's quite something.
It really is. Imagine for a moment a time when the very heartland of the old Roman Empire, Italy itself, was governed by a Germanic king. But this wasn't just any conqueror stomping through. This was a king who was also an admirer, maybe even a preserver of Roman culture.
Absolutely. He saw himself, in many ways, as inheriting that mantle. It's a truly captivating thought, isn't it?
It is.
And our mission with this deep dive is, well, to peel back the layers of this pivotal era. We're going to try and uncover how this kingdom actually came to be.
Okay.
Look at the intricate and sometimes really surprising ways it integrated these very different populations.
Goths and Romans living together.
Exactly. And the political and religious compromises they made, which were not just unusual, but, remarkably effective for their time.
For a while, at least.
Right, for a while. And ultimately, why this ambitious experiment, this Gotho-Roman synthesis, just couldn't endure.
So this exploration should give you, the listener, a real shortcut to those aha moments, shedding light on a king who honestly became a legend.
He really did, Dietrich von Bern, and a kingdom that for a few precious decades truly bridged two worlds that seem on the surface pretty irreconcilable.
I'm ready. Let's jump in. Where do we start? The beginning, I suppose.
Yeah.
The genesis of this kingdom. Okay, so the place to start has to be with Theodoric himself. And what's truly astonishing, maybe the most surprising fact right off the bat, is that Theodoric the Great, this future king of Italy, he spent a huge chunk of his childhood, his formative years, not in some Gothic camp, but right in Constantinople.
Yeah, the heart of the Eastern Roman Empire. It's incredible.
Can you even imagine the culture shock? He was basically a hostage, sent there when he was, 7 or 8 years old?
Around that age, yes. Living within the imperial court.
So what kind of experience would that have been for a young Gothic prince? It must have been worlds away from what his peers back home were learning.
Oh, completely. And it's an extraordinary detail, you're right. It wasn't exactly punishment, though. It was a high-stakes diplomatic move.
Oh, okay.
Designed to secure peace between the Goths, his people, and the Romans. We know his uncle, Valamir, really pushed for this. He genuinely hoped it would guarantee a lasting peace.
So they sent young Theodoric off to Emperor Leo's court.
Exactly. And he stayed there for about a decade. And during that time, the sources say he deservedly gained the imperial favor.
So he wasn't just locked away somewhere. He was actually learning, interacting.
Absolutely. The impact of this period, you almost can't overstate it. Think about it. While other young Goths were learning tribal warfare, raiding tactics, their oral traditions, Theodoric was immersed in this highly literate, bureaucratic, incredibly sophisticated world of the Roman Empire. He would have learned Latin, probably Greek too. He saw Roman administration firsthand.
He's seeing how the sausage gets made, basically.
Exactly. The intricacies of imperial diplomacy, Roman military strategy beyond just, tribal clashes. This gave him an unparalleled understanding of Roman culture, its laws, its administration, its ambitions from the inside.
He wasn't just an observer. He was living it.
Right. Absorbing it, understanding its mechanisms. This uniquely prepared him not just to conquer Romans, but to govern them. That gave him an edge that, frankly, very few other Germanic leaders at the time had. He really became a bridge between those two worlds, even as a kid.
So he wasn't just some warlord who knew how to fight. He genuinely understood how the Roman system worked, how to maintain it, maybe even how to use it to his advantage.
Precisely. That makes so much sense of his later policies, doesn't it?
It really does.
Yeah.
But while Theodoric is getting this unique education in Constantinople, what's happening with his own people, the Ostrogoths? Were they just waiting around patiently?
Oh, far from it. His tribe, the Ostrogoths, were in a state of, deep restlessness, discontent even, especially where they were settled in Illyricum, sort of the modern Balkans area.
Okay.
They weren't happy with their situation. They were living as federates. That's the term for allied troops who got land and subsidies from Rome in return for military service.
Sounds okay on paper, but
it was a really fragile arrangement. The lands weren't always great. The payments weren't regular. Their political status was always subordinate. They were powerful militarily, sure, but they didn't have a stable homeland or real autonomy. They were constantly looking for something better, more secure. Made them a pretty volatile force in the region.
So it wasn't just about survival. They wanted a real homeland, stability, a sense of destiny, maybe.
I think so. And Theodoric himself, he definitely had this strong ambition. He wanted to find a stable, living by his own exertions, as one source puts it, for his people. Move beyond just being dependent federates.
He wanted his own kingdom, basically.
Essentially, yes, a place where his people could thrive independently. And he started working on building his own legitimacy, his military reputation, even before he was officially king. Around 470, 471, he led this major campaign across the Danube.
Okay.
He defeated and killed Babai, who was the king of the Tissas-Sarmatians, and captured Singidunum, that's modern Belgrade.
Wow, that's a significant win.
Huge. It wasn't just a raid, it was a strategic victory. It solidified his position among the Goths, showed his prowess. It kind of legitimized himself as a lord in his own right, even before he was king. Showed he could act independently and effectively. The Romans noticed too, of course.
Right, so he's got this military clout building up. He's got this insider knowledge of Rome. His people are restless. Yeah. How do these pieces fall into place? How does he end up aiming for Italy? That feels like a massive leap.
It was a critical shift, yeah. And it was largely orchestrated, or at least facilitated, by the Eastern Roman Emperor Zeno.
Zeno, okay, how did he fit in?
Well, by the late 5th century, Zeno was facing big challenges from powerful Gothic leaders in the Balkans. There was actually another Gothic leader, also named Theodoric. They called him Theoderic the Squinter to differentiate. Zeno was kind of stuck between these ambitious Gothic factions.
It's a tricky spot.
Very. So Zeno saw this, well, ingenious, maybe risky opportunity. He could direct Theodoric the Great towards the Western Roman territories. Italy, specifically, which was, at that point, outside direct imperial control. It was run by Odoacer, the Germanic general who'd kicked out the last Western emperor.
Ah, so Zeno could solve two problems at once. Get a powerful Gothic force out of his hair in the Balkans.
Exactly. And maybe, just maybe, reassert some kind of imperial influence in the West, even if just nominally, through a king who claimed to rule in his name, like outsourcing the problem.
Clever. Bit cynical, maybe?
Politics often is. But Theodoric was a willing participant, you could say, an eager one.
So what was Theodoric's pitch to Zeno? Let me go take Italy for you.
Pretty much, but framed very cleverly. He offered to recover the western country, Italy, which he pointed out had long ago been governed by barbarians, meaning Odoacer. But crucially, he promised to govern it in the emperor's name.
Ah, playing the loyal subordinate card.
Exactly. It played right into the ongoing ideal of Romanness. He wasn't positioning himself as just another barbarian invader, but as someone restoring Roman order, Roman authority, just under his management. A powerful appeal to Zeno's own desire for renovatio imperii, the restoration of the empire.
So Zeno gave him the green light.
He did. Theodoric launched his invasion of Italy in 488 AD. It wasn't easy. It was a long, brutal campaign. Sieges, battles, culminating in the Siege of Ravenna, and eventually Theodoric eliminating Odoacer in 493 AD.
And that was it. He was the ruler of Italy.
The undisputed monarchical ruler, a truly transformative moment. He wasn't just a conqueror. He was, in his own eyes, and somewhat in Zeno's, a legitimate ruler taking over a Roman legacy.
Which brings us to this other really fascinating aspect of his rule, this dual identity he cultivated. We talked about him absorbing Roman culture in Constantinople, but he actually formalized it, didn't he? He took the title Flavius Rex.
Yes, Flavius Rex, King Flavius.
What was the significance of that? More than just a cool name, I assume. What did it mean for his Gothic followers and his Roman subjects?
Oh, it was loaded with symbolic and political weight. A really deliberate blend that perfectly captured his whole vision. You see, Theodoric was actually a Roman citizen himself.
He was.
Yeah. The Eastern Emperor had granted him citizenship, so he was technically a Flavius. That wasn't just political maneuvering. It reflected a real, complex personal connection to Roman imperial culture.
Okay.
So by calling himself Flavius Rex, he was overtly blending his Gothic lineage. Rex means king, obviously with this very Roman identity, Flavius. The Flavians, that was an imperial clan, Vespasian, Constantine. It was a name soaked in imperial prestige.
So it signaled continuity.
Exactly. It showcased his unique position, a Gothic king ruling Roman territory, but one who embraced and wanted to uphold Roman imperial traditions and legitimacy. It was a visible attempt to bridge that gap between his Gothic warriors, who understood Rex, and his Roman subjects, who revered Flavius. It suggested evolution, not revolution, trying to make his rule acceptable, legitimate to both sides.
So he wasn't just saying, I won, I'm in charge. He was saying, I'm in charge and I'm a legitimate part of this Roman heritage, a protector of it. That's powerful.
Incredibly powerful in that fractured world.
And what's maybe even more surprising is how some contemporaries saw him. Even people from the Eastern Roman Empire, who you'd think would look down on a Germanic king. I've read some saw him as a true emperor. How could a Byzantine historian think that?
That's right, and it tells you a lot about how successful he was, his reputation. The Byzantine historian Procopius, and remember, he was writing after the Byzantines fought a brutal war to destroy Theodoric's kingdom. Procopius actually praised him.
Really? What did he say?
He described Theodoric as truly an emperor as any who have distinguished themselves in this office from the beginning. High praise indeed.
Wow. From an enemy, essentially.
Exactly. And he added, and love for him among both Goths and Italians grew to be great. It's a stunning endorsement. It suggests Theodoric's rule was so effective, so beneficial, so Roman in its outward forms, keeping infrastructure going, respecting law, stable administration, that even a Byzantine intellectual had to admit his imperial quality. He wasn't just acting like an emperor. He was succeeding where many actual late Western Roman emperors had failed. He brought stability back to Italy.
Love for him among both Goths and Italians grew to be great.
Yeah.
I mean, that's extraordinary for any ruler, let alone a Germanic king trying to manage these ethnic and cultural divides.
It really is.
What does that tell us about his ability to actually unite these people, even temporarily?
It's a testament to his political skill, his policy of coexistence. It was highly unusual for a ruler to be loved by both Goths and Edeliker, as one historian puts it, adding that this was otherwise not human nature.
High praise indeed.
It really set him apart from other Germanic rulers who often struggled to gain acceptance from their Roman subjects, often resorting to oppression. Theodoric's blend of Gothic strength and Roman identity resonated. For the Goths, he was their successful king who got them a homeland. For the Romans, he respected their laws, preserved their institutions, maintained peace and prosperity that had been missing for decades. This dual appeal created this remarkable stability, fostering a genuine, if maybe fragile, sense of shared purpose under his rule. It speaks volumes about his governance.
Okay, so it's clear Theodoric wasn't just trying to rule, he was trying to build something lasting, a stable state. But governing Italy at that time, the population was incredibly diverse. That must have been a huge administrative headache.
Oh, a puzzle of the highest order. He faced, as one historian puts it, considerable difficulties in unifying the diverse population. You had his followers, not just Ostrogoths, but other Germanic groups, people from the Balkans who joined him. And then within Italy, the vast majority were Romans, steeped in centuries of Roman law, Roman administration, Roman culture, different legal traditions, different customs, often different religions, which we'll get to.
So how do you even begin to manage that? You can't just impose Gothic law on everyone.
Right.
But you also can't ignore your own warriors.
Exactly. It required a much more nuanced, delicate, frankly ingenious approach to governance to avoid constant friction.
So how did he handle the Roman aristocracy? The old elite, the landowners, the educated bureaucrats. Did he push them aside like a lot of conquerors might do? Seems logical to consolidate power that way.
He did the opposite, actually, and this is where his administrative genius really shows. He implemented this deliberate policy of non-marginalization. He understood he needed them.
He needed the Romans to run Italy.
Absolutely. He actively filled with his most distinguished members the bureaucracy of the kingdom. He used their expertise in law, finance, civil administration. He allowed and even stimulated that the great Roman families made career in the administration and in the court.
So he gave them jobs, kept them involved.
Yes, it wasn't just being nice. It was incredibly pragmatic. He needed their literacy, their knowledge of Roman law, their experience to run the sophisticated Roman state machine he now controlled. Without them, the whole thing, taxes, justice, public works, would just grind to a halt.
Makes sense.
And to keep them loyal, he respected their rural properties, the basis of their wealth, and took care of compensating them when they suffered losses, maybe from taxes or land seizures during the conquest. This made the old nobility feel like the Ostrogothic kingdom was their kingdom too. Gave them a reason to cooperate, not resist.
That's incredibly shrewd. Understanding power is more than just swords. It's also pens and administration. What about the Roman Senate, that ancient symbol of Roman identity? Did it still matter, or was it just a relic?
Well, by Theodoric's time, the Senate didn't hold significant political power anymore, not like in the Republic or early Empire.
Yeah.
That had faded under the emperors.
Yeah.
But the senatorial families still dominated Italian social life. They had immense moral authority, wealth. Theoderic, knowing Roman traditions, understood the Senate's symbolic importance, its role in maintaining Roman identity, Romanitas.
So he kept it around, paid it lip service.
More than lip service. Maintaining good relations with the Senate helped ensure civic harmony and allowed local government to continue with little change. It was a crucial link to the Roman past, a signal to Romans that their traditions were valued.
He actively engaged with them.
Yes, his direct addresses to the Senate are revealing. Cassiodorus recorded him saying things like, "I desire that the spirit of liberty should behold a thronged and grateful Senate." That's not just toleration, it's a deliberate effort to involve and honor this old body, using its prestige for his own legitimacy. He got that to govern Romans, you had to speak to Roman ideals, even if you were a Goth.
Okay, so administration handled smartly. But then there was another massive potential problem: religion. The Goths were Arian Christians. The Romans were Nicene Catholics. That's a fundamental theological split that caused huge conflict elsewhere. How did Theoderic and Arian himself manage that without everything blowing up?
Yeah, this was a huge, potentially catastrophic challenge. The religious divide was stark. Arianism, named after Arius, basically held that Christ was created by God the Father, therefore subordinate,
Whereas Nicene Catholicism
upheld the Trinity, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, as co-equal, co-eternal. This seemingly abstract difference had massive political and social consequences. It led to persecution, forced conversions, all sorts of strife in other Germanic kingdoms like the Vandals in Africa or the Visigoths earlier.
And some earlier Gothic leaders had persecuted Christians too, right?
They had. Figures like Athanaric saw Christians as suspiciously loyal to Rome, not their Gothic rulers. So the potential for conflict was absolutely there.
So what was Theodoric's policy? Did he try to force Arianism on the Romans? That seems like the standard playbook for rulers back then.
He took a remarkably different path. It's known as the Compromiso Ostrogoto, the Ostrogothic compromise. And the key thing is, Theodoric did not act as an Arian, but as king.
Meaning?
He deliberately put himself above the religious conflict. He wasn't the champion of one Christian faction over the other. He saw himself as the protector of all Christians in his kingdom.
How did that work in practice?
His commitment was to guarantee that one and the other were respected and practiced their creed with entire freedom. He maintained separate church hierarchies, Arian bishops for Goths, Catholic bishops for Romans. He funded both, protected both, and crucially stopped either from messing with the other.
Wow. So genuine tolerance, not just ignoring it.
Active guaranteeing of freedom, and this policy was incredibly successful. It managed to neutralize religious tensions for decades. Arian Goths and Catholic Romans lived side by side, worshipped freely without fear of royal persecution.
That's quite something for the 6th century. So different from other places.
Exactly. You look at the Vandal persecutions or later religious wars. Theodoric's approach was a stark contrast. It showed he understood that religious harmony was essential for his kingdom's stability. Unity didn't come from forced uniformity, but from safeguarding different practices under his secular authority. He was the arbiter of peace. And that earned him immense respect from both sides, contributing to that love Procopius talked about. #C, international legitimacy and succession planning.
Okay, so he's managing Italy internally incredibly well. Stable, prosperous, relatively peaceful. But a kingdom like that, sitting right in the old Roman heartland, it needed external validation, right?
Yeah.
Especially from the Eastern Roman Empire and Constantinople. They must have still seen themselves as the real Rome.
Absolutely. External validation, especially the emperor's nod, was paramount. Theodoric worked hard to get it. A key moment came under Emperor Justinus, who took power in 518 AD.
Justinianus, what did he do?
He formally recognized the treaties with Theoderic. That was a huge diplomatic win. Confirmed Theodoric's rule, Italy's status as autonomous but within the imperial sphere. But Justinus went further, crucially, to help solidify Theoderic's succession plans.
Succession, always tricky. How did Justinus help with that? More than just a handshake, I imagine.
Oh, much more. It was a deeply symbolic and politically powerful act. The emperor formally adopted the Amal and royal son-in-law Euric as a weapon son.
Euric, Theodoric's son-in-law and chosen heir.
That's the one. Justinus also granted him Roman citizenship, and in 519, he and Euric held the consulship together, shared the top Roman office for the year.
Wow, that's a massive endorsement.
Huge. It was a comprehensive legitimization of the succession, solidifying it for both Goths and Romans. It hit all the marks. Designation by the current king, Theoderic, adoption by the emperor, Roman citizenship, the consulship. It placed Euric firmly within the Roman imperial framework, made the succession legitimate to Goths, royal lineage, and Romans, imperial endorsement, traditional titles, a diplomatic masterstroke, aiming for that stable Gotho-Roman future Theoderic envisioned.
So he wasn't just some regional king. He was plugged into the wider imperial system, his influence recognized beyond Italy. Did that Ostrogothic power actually reach into other parts of the Old West?
It definitely did. Theoderic's influence stretched quite far. Look at Hispania, the Iberian Peninsula, ruled by the Visigoths. After his Visigothic son-in-law, King Alaric II, died, Theodoric appointed his own top aide, a guy named Theudas, as tutor for his grandson, the young Visigothic king Alaric.
Tutor sounds like regent, basically.
Pretty much. It was a clear exercise of power, putting the Visigothic kingdom effectively under Ostrogothic guardianship. He was ensuring a strong Gothic, specifically Amal-friendly presence there, aligning Visigothic policy with his own.
And militarily. He wasn't afraid to flex his muscles outside Italy either.
Not at all. His army reached into Gaul, modern France. Jordanes, the historian, talks about a major victory over the Franks there. Theodoric's commander, comes Iba?
Comes, like a count.
Yeah, a high-ranking commander.
Oh.
Iba apparently killed more than 30,000 Franks. A devastating defeat for them.
30,000, that's huge.
It showcased the Ostrogothic military strength and strategic reach. It showed everyone, other Germans, the Eastern Empire, that Theodoric's authority was a major force across Western Europe. He was building this complex network of Gothic influence, not just ruling Italy in isolation, made him a truly preeminent figure in the early 6th century.
It's amazing how he built this powerful, respected kingdom. Internally stable, externally influential. But what's maybe even more fascinating is how he lived on after his death, not just in history books, but in legend, in mythology.
Precisely. His impact was so deep, so resonant, especially for Germanic peoples, that he transitioned from history into enduring popular legend. He became Dietrich von Bern.
Dietrich von Bern. Bern as in Switzerland.
No, Bern here means Verona in Italy, one of Theodoric's main residences. He features prominently as Dietrich von Bern in the great German epic poem Das Nibelungenlied.
The Nibelungenlied with Siegfried and the Dragon.
That's the one, composed around 1200 AD, centuries after Theoderic lived. It blends myth dragons, heroes with historical figures, and Dietrich von Bern is a central heroic character in it.
So hundreds of years later, he's still this major figure in one of Europe's great epics. That's incredible staying power. What does it tell us about his cultural impact?
It tells us his story just captured the popular imagination. These legends, these stories, kept the memories of Theoderic and the early Goths alive, probably more effectively than any scholarly historical work.
So the legend outlived the history, in a way.
In popular consciousness, yes. While historians documented his reign, these epic tales preserved this powerful, if somewhat generalized, Gothic identity. After the Goths themselves faded from history as a distinct political force, they were sort of transformed into a symbol of the highest aspirations of all, Germanic tribes. Theoderic, as Dietrich, became a key part of that. These stories endured as the original German epic, making him a template for Germanic heroism and kingship. It shows how historical figures can become larger than life, shaping cultural narratives for centuries. His legendary status cemented his place as a hero, even as his actual kingdom crumbled.
It really seems like Theodoric pulled off something incredible, building that bridge between Romans and Goths, achieving stability. But often, states built around one really strong leader. Well, they can be fragile once that leader is gone.
That's exactly what happened here. The peace and order Theodoric created proved incredibly hard to maintain after he died in 526 AD.
So the cracks started showing pretty quickly.
Almost immediately. You're right, states heavily reliant on one person often struggle with accession. The carefully balanced Gotho-Roman structure just started to wobble, then fracture. It was a mix of internal Gothic power struggles and eventually external pressure.
What kind of cracks? Who was fighting whom? Did his succession plan with Euric not work out?
Well, Euric actually died before Theodoric, so the designated heir was Theodoric's grandson, Alaric, who was just a child when Theodoric died.
Ah, child king. Never easy.
Exactly. The regency fell to Athalaric's mother, Amalasuntha, Theodoric's daughter. She was capable, very pro-Roman, tried to continue her father's policies, but that alienated a lot of the Gothic nobles. They resented her influence, her Roman sympathies.
So the Gothic elite started pushing back.
Yes, it got ugly. Internal power struggles flared up. Amalasuntha was eventually sidelined, imprisoned, then murdered. Her co-regent and cousin Theodahad took the throne, but he was quickly seen as ineffective and possibly complicit in her murder. He himself was then murdered.
Wow, sounds chaotic.
It was. The Gothic army then raised Vitiges, a military commander, to the throne. All this turmoil, the murders, the usurpations, just shows the deep challenges to leadership after Theodoric. There was no clear accepted successor with his authority.
And this divided the Goths themselves.
Critically so. Loyalty fractured. Different factions backed different leaders, or sometimes just backed their local commander instead of the king in Ravenna. There's a telling example early in the war with the Byzantines. A Gothic commander named Pizzas just rejected King Vitiges' leadership and surrendered himself and half the Goths of Samnium to the Byzantine general Belisarius.
Half his troops just defected.
Yeah. It shows loyalty was sometimes local, personal, not necessarily to the monarchy, especially a monarchy seen as weak or illegitimate. These divisions created huge vulnerabilities. The kingdom was basically ripe for attack.
And speaking of attack, with the Ostrogothic kingdom weakened by all this infighting, it became a very tempting target for someone, didn't it?
An irresistible one.
Across the Adriatic, in Constantinople, Emperor Justinian had these grand ambitions. Renovatio Imperii, restoring the Roman Empire. Italy must have been top of his list.
Absolutely. It wasn't just politics, was it? There was ideology, maybe even theology involved.
Definitely. Justinian saw himself as the direct heir of the Caesars, with the divine mission to restore the empire's territory and unity. Reclaiming Italy, the historic heartland, the seat of the Pope, was primary. It was about reclaiming the Roman legacy itself.
And the religious angle. The Goths being Arian, that mattered too. Justinian was a staunch Nicene Christian. He saw the Arians as heretics. Reclaiming Italy also meant bringing the Western Church, especially the papacy, firmly back under imperial control, unifying Christendom under the Nicene faith.
So a mix of imperial pride and religious zeal.
A powerful combination. And he had the general to do it, Belisarius. Exceptionally skilled, already successful against the Vandals in North Africa. Justinian sent him to Italy, launching what would become a long, brutal, incredibly costly war.
And Belisarius started off strong, right? Took key cities quickly.
He did. Initial successes were swift. Naples fell, then Rome itself in 536 AD. Looked like it might be a quick campaign.
But the Goths didn't just roll over.
Not at all. King Vitiges, despite inheriting a mess, put up serious resistance. He besieged Belisarius in Rome for 14 long months.
14 months.
Yeah, from 537 to 538. A grueling siege. And there were other tough battles, like at Ariminum, modern Rimini. It showed the Goths were still a formidable military force, even with fragmented leadership. Belisarius himself faced real difficulties.
But eventually, Belisarius did capture Ravenna, the Ostrogothic capital. That must have seemed like the end game.
It certainly looked that way. The capture of Ravenna in 540 AD was hailed as this massive triumph. Belisarius used a clever trick, got inside, captured King Vitiges and his army.
Or king captured. Oh.
Exactly. Huge symbolic victory. They sent the Gothic royal treasure, Vitiges, his queen, the court nobles, elite Gothic warriors, all shipped off to Constantinople for Justinian's triumph. It really looked like the war was over, the Ostrogothic kingdom finished.
Why wasn't it? If the capital fell, the king was captured. Why did the war drag on for, another decade and a half? What went wrong for the Byzantines?
The critical mistake really was Belisarius prematurely declaring it ended the conquest. He left Italy, taking the king and the treasure, thinking the job was done.
Uh-oh. Classic mission accomplished blunder.
Pretty much. His departure created this huge power vacuum. It left the imperial forces in Italy without their best commander, with lower morale, fewer resources. Many Goths weren't fully subdued, resistance simmered. The Byzantines got overconfident, hadn't solidified control, and that opened the door for a Gothic comeback. Underestimating the enemy, declaring victory too soon. A miscalculation that would cost Justinian dearly.
So Belisarius sails off, victory declared, but it leaves a mess behind. What was happening on the ground in Italy with the Byzantine forces left in charge? Did they manage things well?
Oh, far from it. The situation deteriorated rapidly. The Byzantine forces left behind were often poorly led, constantly squabbling. The army suffered severely from desertions. Soldiers, often mercenaries, weren't getting paid reliably. Morale just tanked.
Not good for an occupying force.
Terrible. Plus, there was disunity among the imperial commanders. And crucially, the Byzantine administration imposed this rigorous, even ruinous tax collection, much harsher than what people were used to under Theodoric.
So the liberators were worse than the previous rulers.
For many Italians, yes. These heady taxes, combined with stopping payments to soldiers, just corroded the morale of the civil population. The very people the Byzantines were supposed to be winning over felt oppressed and disorganized. Started making them maybe a bit nostalgic for Theodoric stability. It created the perfect conditions for rebellion.
A perfect storm.
Yeah.
And into this mess steps a new Gothic leader, Totila.
Exactly, Totila. In this chaos, a pocket of Gothic resistance held out north of the Po River. Seeing the Byzantine disarray, the remaining Gothic army decided they needed a king. They offered the crown to Totila, who was a successful commander based in Treviso.
Was he connected to the old royal family?
He was, actually, the grandnephew of Theudis, who we mentioned earlier, governing Spain for Theoderic. So he had some lineage, some legitimacy. And Totila turned out to be incredibly dynamic, a brilliant leader.
So he managed to rally the Goths.
He did more than rally them. He exploited every Byzantine weakness. He led this astonishing Gothic resurgence, reclaiming huge swaths of Italy. He even retook Rome twice. He used populist policies, offered land and tax relief to Italian peasants, further undermining the Byzantines. For a time, it genuinely looked like the Ostrogothic dream might be revived, against all odds, thanks to Totila's leadership and the Byzantines' own blunders.
So Totila pulls off this incredible comeback. It looks like the Goths might actually win, but we know ultimately the Ostrogothic kingdom disappears. Before we get to that final end, let's just quickly loop back to Theudis, Totila's great uncle, the one Theoderic put in charge in Hispania. What happened to him? Does his story tell us anything about why the Goths couldn't ultimately hold on?
Yeah, Theudis' story is pretty telling. It really highlights how fragmented Gothic power had become by the mid-6th century. After Theoderic died, Theudis, who had been his loyal shield-bearer and governor, became king of the Visigoths in Hispania, and he asserted his independence.
He didn't stay loyal to the Ostrogothic kingdom in Italy.
Yeah. Not really. He pointedly refused to help the Vandals when Belisarius attacked them in North Africa, and more significantly, he refused to help his own nephew, Hildebad, who was briefly Ostrogothic king in Italy and struggling.
So much for Gothic solidarity.
Exactly. By this point, local kingdom interests, dynastic survival, trumped any idea of a unified Gothic front. Theudis prioritized his Visigothic kingdom. His end was pretty rough, too, a disastrous expedition against the Byzantines in North Africa, and then he was likely assassinated back in Spain around 548. His story just underscores the internal divisions and external pressures crushing these Germanic kingdoms.
So even with amazing leaders like Totila fighting back in Italy and powerful figures like Theudis running their own shows elsewhere, the overall Ostrogothic project in Italy was doomed.
Ultimately, yes. Despite Totila's incredible efforts, breathing new life into the cause, the kingdom just couldn't withstand the sustained Byzantine pressure in the long run.
Justinian didn't give up.
He doubled down. After the shock of Totila's successes, Justinian committed huge resources. He sent new, very capable commanders like Narses and fresh armies. The sheer weight of Byzantine military power, their economic resources, plus the lingering internal Gothic issues like succession problems, probably a dwindling population base after years of war, it just proved insurmountable.
And Totila himself.
He was finally defeated and killed in battle in 552 AD. With his death, the main Gothic resistance effectively collapsed. The Byzantine reconquest, though incredibly long, devastating for Italy, and unbelievably costly for Constantinople, eventually achieved its goal.
So that was the end of Theoderic's dream.
The definitive end. The end of that unique experiment in Gotho-Roman rule. It paved the way for more centuries of conflict and fragmentation on the Italian peninsula. A tragic end to a fascinating story.
Wow, what a journey. From hostage prince to legendary king, building this complex kingdom only for it to be ultimately erased.
It really is a dramatic arc. Covers so much about power, identity, culture clash.
We've seen how Theodoric the Great carved out this kingdom in Italy that, for a time, really managed to blend Gothic power with Roman tradition. This fragile but fascinating synthesis.
That Flavius Rex identity, the religious compromise, quite remarkable achievement.
Absolutely. His rule stands as this testament to the complex, sometimes surprising adaptability of these post-Roman societies, a kingdom admired even by its eventual destroyers. Yet, despite that imperial recognition, despite becoming a legend like Dietrich von Bern, the kingdom just couldn't survive him. Internal strife, the ambitions of Byzantium, it all came crashing down.
The pressures were immense.
So what does this deep dive tell us about power, identity, cultural integration when empires fall and new orders try to rise? It leaves me with this kind of provocative thought. Can a new order truly thrive? Can it forge its own unique path if it's always at its core looking back, trying to preserve and emulate the very structure it replaced?
That's a great question. Did trying to be too Roman make them vulnerable in the end to the actual inheritors of Rome?
Maybe. It's that balance, isn't it? Between tradition and innovation, especially in times of massive change. Theodoric tried for both, and for a while created something truly unique. But maybe that balance is just inherently unstable.
It often seems to be a fascinating period to reflect on.
Our study continues in the next part.